All right, so let's get started. So this is going to be a very short session. So I probably can do this blazingly very fast if you guys are able to catch on, right? With my speed, I'm from India, so I talk very fast, right? We can either do that, or if we want to do some question and answers, we could even do that as well, right? So it's completely left to you guys. I know this is a very small audience, 2 people. So again, essentially we'll be talking about migrating, architecting Oracle workloads on VMware platform. I'm sure you must have gone to these different sessions, right, where they talk about VMC, VMware Cloud on AWS, you have GCVE, OCVS, so on and so forth. But I'm going to talk very high level on the methodology, because if I have to do a deep dive, it'll probably take me 6 to 8 hours, right? We used to run workshops in previous, VMworlds, where we used to talk about moving from, let's say, AIX, Solaris, HPUX over to x86, inculcating all these best practices, making sure you performance tune, bundling, packaging it up, moving up to the cloud, making sure that you do the same due diligence when you go to the cloud, right? So that if you have to come back or if you have to run your workloads, right, you're able to sustain the workloads. So again, like I said, 15-minute talk, not much time, but I'll try to do the best as I can, right? And again, I'm going to move here. So this is typically a slide I've been using for the last 12 years, and one may wonder why I've been doing that. Just to stress, or just to, let's say, send a point home that any process or any Oracle design methodology starts right from the top, right? So you gather requirements, sell the project to stakeholders. You got to understand your current problems, because if you don't know that, when you move to the destination, which is VMware, the same problems are going to persist, right? And when you do that, workload management or workload measurement, why? How can you control the beast if you don't know the nature of the beast? You got to know the nature of the beast, right? So you measure the workload. Then you have to move the data from point A to point B. Data moves to point B, which is VMware. You do your testing using either a synthetic workload generator, or let's say the Oracle RAT, which is the Oracle Real Application Testing. You do that, inculcate best practices. And once you're happy with that, you make sure that the vSphere cluster is good enough for Oracle support and licensing, right? And I just said that in my previous session. You guys want to talk about it? Sure. You got to get me drunk enough to do that. But I will talk about licensing as well. Considerations for sizing, you have your backup, restore, recovery, HADR, monitoring, tuning. But can anybody just raise their hand and say, oh, well, we need to do this for VMware? I mean, apart from the whole Oracle licensing nonsense, right? I don't think there's anything that you guys have to do specific for VMware. So again, case in point being, really nothing changes when one virtualizes their Oracle workloads on a VMware vSphere platform. Let me say again, nothing changes when one virtualizes Oracle workload, because people typically, they come up to me, customers, partners, they say, well, if I'm moving my workloads from Solaris to VMware, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do my best practice, so on and so forth. You don't have to do it. Don't do your best practices, right? It'll work like a charm. But here's the thing, it won't do what you expect it to do. If you are expecting it to push 100,000 IOPS, no, it won't do that. See, that's the reason why one wouldn't go to the market to buy a single port HBA, right? And basically access it to one side of a fabric and say, I'm done. But nobody would do that, right? You are setting yourself up for failure. Similarly, there are best practices that needs to be inculcated in every thing of the stack. And that's typically a thing I show people, right? If you don't have a good infrastructure, no way in hell your Oracle workloads are going to scale up, right? And again, wherever I say the word Oracle, you can probably take it out, put the word SQL, put the word SAP, because this methodology is no different for any business critical application, right? How do I start doing my workload plan and design? What do I do, right? Well, you have two choices here. If you look to the choice on the left-hand side, essentially that's a pick and drop, which means I'm getting booted off my data center in 15 days. I don't have the essence of time. I really don't have time to do it, or I don't want to do it. I'm lazy, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, this server, 2 socket, 10 cores each. Well, this virtual machine is 20 vCPUs. Move it. Will it work? Yes. You know what? You've just finished your replatforming. What's the cons of it? Because there are pros and cons to every approach in life, right? What's the cons to it? You end up 6 months later, when you do your VROps or ARIA, you call it ARIA, I'll call it VROps, right? But when you do it 6 months later, you end up with this bunch of servers that you don't know what you want to do with that, right? Pick and drop, garbage in, garbage out. The approach to the right-hand side is workload plan and design. But how do I do that? What metrics do I use? What tools do I use, right? Too many. Okay, all right. Again, when you start measuring your workload, 2 ways to do it as well. You can approximate it. Goes back to the same example I gave, right? I can give you another use case. My CIO basically said, I don't want you to do this science project. Just tell me the number of servers you want so I can budget for it, right? In which case, you need to go back to your business and ask them, can you identify a peak business period? Your business could be Monday to Friday. 9 a.m. to 5 or 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the evening, correct? But then your workload would be very heavy from, let's say, 9 to 11 in the morning. I would pick 3 days or I would pick 5 days. I would point live optics to it. I'm sure you guys must have heard of live optics, right? It's a great tool. If not, it's free. You don't have to pay money for it. Works like a charm. Please use it, right? It gives you general utilization for those 4 quadrants: CPU, memory, disk, and network. Good? So now you can go back to your CIO and say, I think we probably might need 200 of these servers, so budget X amount of dollars. That helps you. Approximation. If you want to do a deep dive into finding exactly how many servers you want, you need a second way of doing it, wherein you use something from Specint. How many people have heard of spec.org? Specint. So spec is basically a standard that the industry has developed. They basically say, right, for this generation of servers having so many sockets, so many cores, clock speed, right, there is a peak value and there is a base value. It's just a number it throws out. Essentially what it does, it runs Fortran, Pascal, or any other language, right, compilers against the CPU, because it wants to see how much is it stressing the CPU and the L1 and the L2 cache, correct? So just go with the base number. Let's say the base number is 100. And let's say your choice for the vendor is Cisco. I'm just picking something from thin air, right? Or HP. What I would then say is these set of servers matches these set of servers. So if it is X, I probably need Y, right? That's a universal set. Zoom in. Using Oracle AWR, AWR stands for the Oracle Workload Repository. Every intelligent system in this world will take a snapshot of itself at every predetermined time. Oracle is no different. It does that as well, right? You would use the Oracle AWR, right? And that's typically what CIOs or directors would do. They will just come to you and say, you know what, can you tell me what happened at your Oracle database between 9 to 10? I knew something was going bad, but I can't pinpoint it. Oracle DBS basically use AWR. They will use that report and they'll come back and say, somebody ran a bad query or a nasty query, and that's what brought the entire call center down. So what you use for triaging is also being used for performance tuning, right? So you will use the Oracle AWR along with the Linux system stat. How many people know system stat? Probably everybody. You guys are all Linux guys, right? Windows guys. So Linux systat, the utility, gives you the command, the utility, the SAR, right? When you run the SAR command, you are now able to marry the Linux statistics along with the Oracle statistics, combine that with the Specint, out pops a straw man for a virtual machine, right? And that's the approach you would use if you're moving from AIX, HPUX, Solaris, Exadata, ODA, another virtualized platform like OVM, Zen, KVM, whatever. This is the thing that you would use when you move in from that platform over to VMware. There's a bit of a nuance. There's a bit of a nuance here when you move from, let's say, AIX, HPUX, Solaris, right? There is this whole concept of Big Endian. How many people have heard of Big Endian? Not this guy, Big Endian. Not Indian, Endian. Yeah, so the Big Endian essentially is this, right? You have your most significant byte and the least significant byte, right? That's how a big Endian system looks like. From a little Endian, which is your x86, your Linux, your Windows of the world, it's a flip, which means you cannot cut, copy, paste, or do a Control-C, Control-V, suck the data in and spit the data out. You can't do that, right? You gotta use the Oracle way of doing it. So it has to be the Oracle migration tools, whether that's your data guard, RMAN, backup restore, create table as select, pick your favorite tool. You have to do it that way, right? So what we did here, right, in this brief 15 minutes, we designed a virtual machine based on the current utilization of network, disk, CPU, memory, correct? We suck the data in, we put the data here, but sorry, the buck doesn't stop, because I need to make sure, I need to inculcate best practices in every level of the stack, right? So I was just telling the previous crowd here, we basically used to run these workshops for 6 to 8 hours where we used to beat the entire performance stuff to death, right? We used to talk about it in detail. I can't do justice to that in the 15 minutes that we have here, but yes, you need to inculcate every performance metrics, right? Every performance best practice. For example, people say, use 4 PV-SCSI controllers. Why? There's a reason why they say that. Load balancing, queue depth, fairness, VMX Net 3, queue depth, NUMA, right? Memory reservation, probably yes and no, right? So those are some of the key concepts you have to keep in mind. But again, I'll just give you an example here, right? If I have to design my Oracle database on VMware, this is probably how I'll do it. This is just one of the ways I would do it. This is not the way, this is just one of the ways I would do it. And what I want to highlight here is I have load balanced my VMD case across all my 4 PV-SCSI controllers for the same load balancing reason here. And if I have to do an Oracle rack, I'll just add my CRS and my vote to the last SCSI controller, low presto, I'm done. This is important. Many customers, they fail to do this, right? Once they move it from point A to point B, they kind of assume my work is done, right? Let's just go and party. You can in Vegas, but after you do your job, you have to measure the workload, correct? You have to test it. How do you know it's going to scale? You have no idea it's going to scale up, right? Again, you have a choice here. You can either use the Oracle RAT, which is a very expensive tool from Oracle, but a great tool. It's real application testing, right? It captures all the SQLs and replace it on the target. You could do that. Or if you don't have the tool, you could use your swing bench, your HammerDB, the Orion, IOmeter, DD, FIO, or even SLOB. I mean, I favor the SLOB. It's silly little Oracle benchmark. But case in point being, you are able to know exactly how much your workload is pushing. See guys, at the end of the day, it's not about benchmarking, right? If I were to tell you this architecture is going to push 1 million IOPS, what are you going to do with that, right? Because that's not how much your workload is pushing. Your workload may be pushing 1,000 or let's say 100,000 IOPS. If so what, if a system pushes a million, that's not what you're after. You're after how much my workload is pushing. So these best practices needs to be kept in mind. And I've been told I just have a minute to wrap things up. So when you spread your wings and fly to the cloud, you have a cloud of your choice, whether it's VMC, GCVE, AVS, OCVS. Every cloud vendor is different. There are pros and cons to that. Depends upon the choice of the cloud and the kind of analytics that you want. For example, if I need to go to, if I'm an Oracle guy, and if I want to go to a cloud, I'll probably go with OCVS because I have autonomous transaction, autonomous database, right? That doesn't mean OCVS is great for everybody. You can go to VMC, GCVE, and OCVS. But the best practices does not change when you move from on-premise to the cloud, right? And I think, how many more minutes? Seconds? I got to wrap it up. But here's the thing. Let me just make two quick statements. I will be there at the Expo booth, right? CIBG, come find me. If you guys want to have a deep dive, we are giving sneakers away, 4 sneakers. If you don't like good shoes, you don't like sneakers, give me a ticket, I'll take it from you, right? But we're giving that away. The drawing is at 4:45. But if you guys want to talk about licensing, you got to buy me a drink. If not, everything is free, all right? Good? Thank you.